Today, we're jumping into a really cool thought experiment. It connects the super new world of digital currency with the ancient world of precious metals. And the central question is this: what if the tiniest piece of a Bitcoin was actually backed by a tiny speck of gold? The answer is, well, it's pretty mind-blowing. So this is the big question, right? We're imagining a world where a Satoshi, which is the smallest possible fraction of a Bitcoin, is pegged one-to-one with a tiny physical milligram of gold. So how would a seemingly small decision like that totally transform the value of one whole Bitcoin? And the answer? Well, according to this little experiment, it's the number you're looking at right now, $12,150,000 for one single Bitcoin. So how on earth do we get to a valuation that massive? To get it, we need to break down the building blocks. Okay, so to really wrap our heads around that insane $12 million figure, we first need to get familiar with the three key players in this comparison. We've got one from the digital world and two from the good old physical world. First up, we've got the Satoshi. Now, the easiest way to think about this is if a Bitcoin is $1, a Satoshi is basically a single cent. It's the smallest piece you can have, and there are exactly 100 million of them packed into every Bitcoin. You could call it the fundamental particle of the Bitcoin universe. All right, next up is our first physical player, a milligram of gold. Now, this is a teeny tiny amount, but it's a real tangible piece of metal that people have seen as valuable for, thousands of years. You can't hold a Satoshi, but this has real weight, real history. And our final piece of the puzzle is a milligram of silver. It's here for the same reason as gold, to act as another physical benchmark. And as you'll see, is going to give us a really fascinating point of comparison in just a bit. So let's put some real-world numbers to these, based on the analysis. As you can see, 1 Satoshi and 1 milligram of silver, they're pretty close, right? Both are worth a tiny fraction of a cent. But then look at gold. 1 single milligram of gold is worth over 85 times more than that speck of silver. And that huge gap, well, that's the key to this whole thing. Okay, we've got our units, we've got their values. Now let's have some fun. Let's build out our first what-if scenario. What actually happens if we decide that the value of 1 digital Satoshi is now tied directly to 1 milligram of physical gold? So here's exactly how we get to that jaw-dropping number from the intro. The idea is super simple. 1 Satoshi now equals 1 milligram of gold. We already know that 1 milligram of gold is worth about 12 cents. So the math is pretty easy. You just multiply that 12-cent value by the 100 million Satoshis in a Bitcoin, and bam! The result is a staggering $12,150,000 per Bitcoin. Okay, so that gold scenario is, well, it's pretty out there. But what happens if we do the exact same experiment with a metal that's a lot closer in value to a Satoshi to begin with? Let's take a look at the silver scenario. We're running the same playbook here. The premise is now 1 Satoshi equals 1 milligram of silver. The value of that silver is way lower, just over 1/10 of a cent. We multiply that tiny value by our 100 million Satoshis, and we get a Bitcoin price of $142,000. I mean, it's not 12 million, but that's still a really significant number. And this is where the whole thought experiment gets really interesting. That silver-pegged price of $142,000, it's only about 25% higher than the Bitcoin price used for this analysis. They're surprisingly close. It suggests a much more tangible relationship than that wild one we saw with gold. And this chart just lays it all out perfectly. You can see the current Bitcoin price and the silver-pegged price kind of hanging out together over on the left. They're in the same ballpark. And then, way over on the right, you have this absolute monster of a bar for the gold-pegged price. It's not even in the same league. It really puts the incredible scale of that first scenario into perspective. So this whole exercise leaves us with one final, really provocative question that the source material itself asks. If the value of 1 single Satoshi is already this close to the value of a milligram of silver, just how close are we to an unofficial silver peg right now? It's a powerful idea to chew on, one of the oldest forms of money meeting the very newest. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.